Hello and welcome back to Ellie Talks Tech. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to set up your Rodecaster Pro to use in a podcast setting. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Looking at your Rodecaster Pro, you can see that you have 4 channel select buttons labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, as well as buttons underneath showing an ear and a slashed audio icon. The ear will allow you to solo that channel, so it's the only thing you can hear on the board. And the slashed audio icon will allow you to mute that button. Sometimes it's called a cough button. Your physical faders are going to control the volume level of the channels, so you can decide how loud each one needs to be. And then if you look over at the additional channels, there's a USB-C input. There's a channel labeled a cell phone, that's just an 1/8 inch input. And then there's a Bluetooth channel. I'll show you how to enable that here real soon. You also have your 8 beat pads and a volume control for that as well. Looking above the beat pads, you'll see 5 knobs. These control the volume of your headphone sets. There are 4 individual headphone outputs on this board, so each person can have their own volume set for what they're listening to. There's also a master control knob, that's the one to the right by itself, and that'll control the volume of all of them simultaneously. They don't sync up, so if one is already louder than 3 and you turn them both down, they're here, they'll turn down like this. It won't take them to the same level and then turn them down. You can see that I have my display set to show me in decibels how loud this is going to be. That's in advanced settings, and I'll show you how to change that in just a moment as well, but it's called broadcast meters. To get into the software settings, let's take a look at the back of the board. You'll see that I have 4 XLR inputs. These are the blue cabled inputs, and they have 3 prongs on the head. Then just past that, you'll find the input labeled cell phone. That's your 1/8 inch audio line. Next to that are your 4 headphone lines. These you would plug in with a 1/4 inch cable. Next to that, you have your stereo output. This is going to give you a left and right, what's called a master recording. That's everything that's going into the board in just a single audio file. I have this outputting to a video switcher. You can have it output to anything you want. Next to that, we have our micro SD card. That's another place that the recording can be stored, and it'll be stored just automatically there. Next to that, we have our USB-C input. Then we have our power cord and our power button. Now let's take a look at some of the software settings. If you press the gear icon in the upper left-hand corner of your board, you'll see channels, podcasts, sounds, and advanced. If you tap channels, you'll see the option to select 1 through 4, your USB, your smartphone, or your Bluetooth. If you select 1 through 4, it'll have the same effect as if you pressed one of the physical channel select buttons above each fader. It's going to select that channel, and you can change the microphone settings to choose a specific model that you're recording with if it's from Rode, or a specific type, condenser or dynamic. Looking at levels, you can adjust how loud the microphone is set. Of course, you can also adjust that further when you're using the actual volume faders, but this will give you a starting point. For audio processing, you have a lot of things that you can do while recording. This is considered a destructive recording, which means that if you're taking the file and editing it later, you can't take away what's been done to it. So if you're adding a compressor, a high-pass filter, a de-esser, a noise gate, all of that, it's going to further and further compress your file and take away certain frequencies, which could be fine if it sounds good to you in your ears and you're not sending it to an editor. If you are sending it to an editor and it sounds weird, they may not be able to fix the weirdness. Keep that in mind while you're recording. So you can record with these settings on, or you can wait until later and edit exactly the way that you want it. Finally, you can choose the type of voice that's being recorded on that channel. So you can set the tone if they have a really deep, a medium, or a high voice. You can also set the strength of their voice. So if they're talking really softly or really loudly, you can choose that as well. In addition, on your USB, smartphone, and Bluetooth channels, you can choose a few more things. Since your inputs are a little bit different, you can choose if it's speech, music, or has no preset. You can choose the level here as well. And on the smartphone and Bluetooth settings, you can also choose if it's going to be a phone call. The smartphone icon is the same line in the back of your board that will take an 1/8 inch audio line. So you can connect anything, whether you want to use a smartphone with a connector like this or something different, as long as it has that 1/8 inch input or an adapter like I used for my cell phone, you'll be fine. Now let's take a look at how to connect a Bluetooth device. I'm going to connect my smartphone. So first I'm going to press the blue button so that it lights up, and then it'll be in pairing mode. Then I'm going to go to the device I'm connecting, again in this case it's my cell phone, and go into Settings, Bluetooth, and look for the device. Once I find it, I'll select it and it will pair. It doesn't have a password, it doesn't require a lot of extra steps, you just have to enable it, and then you would control the volume of that channel using the fader that's on the board. The next setting we have is the sounds that you can set for the trigger pads. It comes preloaded with certain sounds, which is that first sound bank. You'll see I customized the very first one to correspond to a podcast that I engineer. The second sound bank I've also customized. And the third sound bank we're going to customize together right now. So how do you do that? Well, you're going to get the Rodecaster Pro software on your computer. It's a free download and it allows you to control what's on those beat pads. So after you download the software and install it, you'll want to connect your Rodecaster Pro using a USB-C to standard USB or whatever input your device has to connect it. You'll use that USB-C jack on the back of your soundboard. Once it's connected, it'll recognize the board, and then you can load any audio files that you have saved to your device onto certain patches. You'll do this by selecting the sound bank, then tapping the trigger, and then choosing the file that you want it to play. You can use literally any audio file here, but I always recommend to have royalty-free or licensed music or sounds if you are loading someone else's sounds on it. If you press Sounds in your settings, that's going to show you those sound banks. So you can see what's loaded based on how you've labeled it or how Rode labeled their internal sounds. You can also check that SD card and its files right on your device. If you press Podcasts, it'll show you what's been recorded. You can toggle through them and listen to them. And then in Advanced, you can control some additional features of the hardware. So if you tap micro SD card, it's going to let you turn on podcast transfer mode. It'll show you the capacity of your card, and it will allow you to format that SD card to make sure that it will allow the soundboard to record to it. Be careful though, when you format a card, it deletes everything on it. So if you have something you want on an SD card already, be sure to store it somewhere else where it's safe before you format the card. Brightness controls the brightness of the display. Headphones is going to control some master settings. You can see you can limit the maximum volume or you can boost the headphone volume. Bluetooth settings, again, this is where you're going to pair your Bluetooth device. So you turn it on and then you can pair a device. Audio settings is going to be where you see if you're going to record to an SD card, if you can record via USB, if you want to bypass audio processing, which are the settings like the compressors and the filters. And if you want to turn on a post fader, when you tap processing, you can see I have USB mix minus turned on. You can also enable ducking, the TRS output to 6 decibel pad, and the effects edit mode. In operations, you can see that's where I turn down broadcast meters. That's where it displays the volume in decibels. You can automatically mute your outputs, which are going to be everything that's sending sound out. You can disable your level knobs, enable a pre-fade listen, or turn on MIDI control. If you don't have a MIDI device connected, you don't need that turned on. Information is going to show you the firmware version on your soundboard, as well as allow you to set your date and time or do a factory reset. You can also see the engineer headphone output towards the front of the board so that you can plug in your own set of headphones without taking away an output from one of the people recording on the podcast. So while you're engineering your podcast, you'll want to make sure you hit that record button. You can use the triggered sounds to do anything that you want, anything you've loaded into it. You can control the volume of those as well. And then you'll press the record button. Again, when you're done, it'll go from red to green to show you that it stopped recording. And you can take the SD card audio file and put it into a device to pull the audio off of it. And that's a quick overview of all of the features and controls of the Rodecaster Pro. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions or need help troubleshooting errors, go ahead and drop it in the comments. I'll try to get to you as soon as I can. And of course, if this video did help you, if you enjoyed watching it, give it a thumbs up. You can also see my demo of using the Rodecaster Pro right here. And if you want to stick around for more tutorials, demos, tech tips, and creative technology news, go ahead and hit subscribe. I would love to see you around. As always, it's such a pleasure to have you watching, and I hope to see you back here real soon.